All right, we are live. I see there's some folks already waiting in the live stream here. Gonna wait for just a few more people to hop on, and then we will get rolling with this live stream here. All right, audio seems like it's working. Go ahead and let me know in the comments how the audio sounds to you guys. Also, let me know where you guys are watching from, all that good stuff. And once I see a few more people hopping in, we're going to start talking about the upcoming storm pattern that is heading our way starting tonight into tomorrow. And then we have what looks like is going to be an even stronger storm on Saturday. And there's still some questions about where the strongest impacts of that storm are going to be, but it does seem like it may be stronger for South Washington and also Oregon. All right, I see there are more people hopping in. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see everyone hopping in. I'm going to go ahead and pin a comment here real fast, and then we will get rolling with this. So right now we're looking at the satellite imagery, and we can clearly see the influences of the jet stream moving across the ocean. All right, almost finished with posting this comment, and then I'm going to start talking about this upcoming storm. We're starting to see the development of the windstorm already on satellite here. Okay. Pinned comment. Awesome, awesome. All right, again, good evening, everyone. Benjamin Yurkovich here with Washington Weather Chasers. Just about to do an update here, talking about this storm pattern that we have heading our way. I see we have 94 people in the chat. Awesome. Go ahead and let me know where you guys are watching from, what kind of weather you're hoping to see, and what kind of weather you're not hoping to see. And I'm going to start getting into this update here. So right here, we're looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see the atmospheric river barreling into Vancouver Island, British Columbia right now. And if we were to pop over to the radar imagery, which we have right here, we can see that it is beginning to come pretty close to the Washington coast. Have some light rain up there, actually, up there by Nia Bay and Watch. But the main atmospheric river is still a bit offshore, and that's going to make its way further onshore overnight as the evening progresses. And something else that's kind of interesting, excuse me, is we're already beginning to see the development of our mid-latitude cyclone that is going to bring a windstorm to the Pacific Northwest on Saturday. And this right here is the development, the beginning stages of what we call barclinic leaf. And we can actually see this. If we look at the cloud covered by levels here, this is like simulated satellite imagery from the European model. Here we have our satellite, or here we have our atmospheric river, but then right here we can see this feature on the simulated radar, the simulated satellite rather. And if we loop this forward, watch that feature right here. You can see it develop, and then there it's turned into a deeper surface low. By Friday afternoon, this thing will already be well developed. And then as we head into Saturday morning, it'll be closer to the Oregon and Washington coast, and then is going to move onshore someplace between North Oregon and North Washington. And we're going to get into the details of that a little bit more as we go on here. And before I get too much further, I'm going to just take a look at the chat and see who has hopped on and who said hi. I see Sam Ratet, Keith Caparello. Hello, guys. I'm not going to read everybody's name because it'll probably take too long. Hey, West Coast weather in the house there. Puget Sound Weather Watch. Kurt Kaplan, hi. Sasquatch. Carol Noble, hello. Shane Algard, tuning in from Israel. What about over the Sea of Galilee, Israel? All right. Have a good trip over there, Shane. Rex Kendall also tuning in from over there. Awesome. Okay, yeah, go ahead and continue to let me know where you guys are watching from. And we're going to get deeper into this update now. All right, 145 people in the chat. Awesome. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying this update, please go ahead and like the stream and also subscribe to the channel. And that definitely helps get this thing going and out to more people as we go on. And here we kind of see the development of that baroclinic leaf. Not going to get into all the little details here, but this is kind of how it looks on a diagram. But now, as we head into the evening, this is looking at the HRRR high rapid refresh model, high resolution rapid refresh model. And we're going to get more rain coming onto the coast as we head into the evening. And then the main show begins working its way onto the coast around early to mid morning with a pretty sharp cold front. That's where it's going to have the heaviest rainfall rates. This is going to be a pretty short duration atmospheric river overall, but it's going to pack a punch when it goes through, and it's going to have some reasonably strong winds as well. And if we were to look at the winds here, as we go through the evening tonight, they're going to start picking up, especially in the morning up there by the San Juan Islands, west Whatcom County, west Skagit County, Island County, and definitely out there on the coast where it's going to be sustained close to 30 knots. And it might even get sustained up to about 36 knots up there in the Strait of Juan de Fuca. And as we go on, the gradient tightens ever so slightly more over the interior, but look out there on the coast. It starts getting sustained close to 35 knots, and then as it comes close to shore, it gets even stronger, really close to the shore. So it could get sustained close to 42 knots, according to the HRRR model, which is almost sustained at 50 miles per hour, and that might be overdoing it just a bit. But either way, it's going to pack quite the punch with the rain and the wind out there on the coast. I'm actually hoping to get out there early enough, possibly, to experience that, possibly. And then, in terms of wind gusts, you can see as we head into the night, it's not too breezy as we get before midnight, but after midnight, things really start to pick up there by the San Juan Islands. And check that out, up there by La Push, 58 miles per hour, possibly, according to the HRRR. And then at 8 a.m. up there in the San Juan Islands, we're talking gusts from 48 to 50 miles per hour. And it actually calls for even stronger wind gusts up there as the morning goes on. I don't know if this is overdoing it. It probably is, in my opinion. But in the HRRR's opinion, it might gust close to 60 miles per hour up there by the Bellingham Airport. But then also down here by Ocean Shores and Westport and Long Beach, we could possibly get some gusts up above 60 miles per hour with the passage of that cold front. So that could be pretty interesting, pretty dynamic. In tandem with the heavy falling rain out there, it could actually be a pretty visual experience, driving rain with that strong wind. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to possibly getting out there and seeing that. Looking at the NAM3KM model, same story, maybe a little bit less strong wind as it comes ashore. It's calling for gusts up to about 55 miles per hour out there on the coast. And up there in the San Juan Islands, 48, 50 miles per hour. And once we get up into West Whatcom County, it's calling for gusts maybe to 50. So it seems like the HRRR model might be kind of on its own. And then for the rest of Western Washington, it's going to get noticeably breezy. There might be some what you may say nuisance power outages up and down the I-5 corridor. And it's going to get a little bit breezy on the east side of the Cascades as well, but nothing really to write home about. And looking at the European model, it's kind of the same story as the NAM 3 cam in regards to wind gusts. All right, before I go any further real quick, I'm just going to pause and let new people that may be hopping on know what I'm doing. Basically, I'm just doing an update talking about the atmospheric river that's moving onshore tonight into tomorrow morning, and also going to be taking a look at the more stronger windstorm that's going to occur on Saturday. I wouldn't say it is a strong windstorm per se or a major windstorm, but it could still pack a punch for some areas for sure. Before I go any further, I'm just going to take a look at the chat real fast, and then I'll continue. Alexis from Puyallup, she wants wind and thunderstorms. And I apologize in advance if I don't see some of your guys' comments. Charlene, watching from Eastern Washington, Yakima, wondering whether or not you guys are going to get anything. Her 102-year-old mom is supposed to visit from the west side this weekend. It might be interesting up in the pass with some snow later in the weekend. Key Peninsula, interesting weather sometimes, says Jessica Wyman. Long Beach Peninsula is present, according to Sasquatch. Awesome. Thanks for hopping in, everybody. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Cynthia, Cynthia Asper says she feels like they're making this out to be bigger than it is. I don't think anyone I know is necessarily trying to make this out to be bigger than it is, but it's more a lot of weather lovers and also meteorologists are excited that it is this time of year with active weather. This is normal Washington weather that we're talking about, but this is really the first decent storm of the year that we have to talk about in regards to some heavier rain and wind and whatnot. And there are going to be some impacts and power outages, so it's worth talking about. Samartet says he's predicting lowland snow before December 1st. All right, who else agrees with Samartet? If you agree with Samartet, go ahead and post a snowflake emoji in the comments. Okay, so now we're looking at rain totals on the European model, and this is, one second here. I'm just going to pop this little thingy into the chat. All right. Thanks for your patience, everyone. I see lots of snowflakes showing up. All right. Yeah, we got a lot of snow lovers in the house. If you're not excited for snow this winter, go ahead and post like a wow emoji or something. Okay, so getting back to the update here. I'll check back to see if we have any wow emojis showing up. This is looking at the rainfall totals through Saturday morning, and this will be after tonight and tomorrow's atmospheric river is over, calling for rainfall totals for much of the I-5 corridor of about an inch. Mount Vernon 1.4, Everett 1.1, Seattle 1.2, Tacoma 1.1. More rain out there on the Olympic Mountain Peninsula. The Bear Gulch fire area could get up to 3 inches. And portions of southwest Washington down there by Long Beach, Ilwaco, could get up close to 2 inches. Same with out there in Ocean Shores and Westport as well. And if we look at the NAM 3 cam, it's calling for slightly less amounts of rainfall along the I-5 corridor, more maybe like a ½ inch, and less on the coast as well, but pretty high rainfall amounts up on the highest peaks of the Olympic Mountains and the Cascades. And the HRRR is calling for rainfall amounts closer to the European model. Okay, now we get to start talking about the fun stuff. This is the part of the update I've been really wanting to talk about the most. So if you've hung with me this whole entire time, thank you so much. And if you're just joining the chat, what's happening right here is we're looking at the infrared satellite imagery. We got this long fetch of moisture going all the way across the Pacific Ocean. If it's hard to see things on here, right here is Washington. Up here is Alaska. This is the Aleutian Islands here. Mexico down here. Here's the Hawaiian Islands and big, vast Pacific Ocean. And we got this jet stream just ripping across the whole entire Pacific Ocean. It's the contrast between warmer air down south, cooler air up north, and we can see how much colder air is spilling out across the North Pacific into the Gulf of Alaska. And it's creating that tight pressure gradient and this really strong jet stream. And this right here is the development of the storm that's going to bring winds to the Pacific Northwest on Saturday. It's already developing out there. And if we pop over to the European, we're looking at the surface pressure here. So right here is that ripple. It's not quite a closed surface low at this point. And once we get to tomorrow morning into tomorrow afternoon is when it becomes a bit more of an organized surface low. And then as we go through tomorrow night, it deepens. And now, since it's closer to the coast, I am going to go ahead and pop to a closer view. So there's Saturday night, Friday night into Saturday morning rather. And it goes right across Vancouver Island with that model, the European model. Now, I know this is not necessarily it doesn't necessarily look like a beast, like 960 millibar low, but it does still have a pretty powerful gradient on the back side of this. It's kind of wonky on some of these model runs, like the European model run is a little bit elongated. It kind of messes with the pressure gradient a bit and it's not the most organized low, but once it does come ashore, look at some of these winds as it comes into southwest Washington. Could have winds close to being sustained at 40 knots, which 41 knots is 47 miles per hour. So 46 to 47 miles per hour sustained, that would pack a punch. And then we can see there is plenty of wind going up and down the I-5 corridor. And this would be a pretty decent blow for the Oregon coast, the Willamette Valley, and we're going to pop to the wind gusts here for Washington State. All right. So you see the backside of that over the water is going to have gusts, according to this model run of the European, anywhere from 60 to 71 miles per hour back there. So we're going to have to keep a really close eye on that. And then look at this. It brings a big fetch of wind gusts to the Washington coast, really close to the Washington coast of up over 60 miles per hour. And then inland, plenty of areas getting up over 50 miles per hour. And then over there by the I-5 corridor, getting up over 40 miles per hour. And of course, down there in Oregon, it looks like it might be a bit more of an impactful storm down there. And let's zoom into state level here. That's tonight. All right, there we go. So yeah, this model run is showing there being wind gusts down there in the Long Beach Peninsula anywhere from 63 to 55 miles per hour. Up there in Westport, around 58 miles per hour. Hoquiam, 55. Ocean Shores, 59. Down there by Vancouver, Washington, 43. Longview, 43. Olympia area, 46. Tacoma, 42. And North Bend, possibly 50. SeaTac area, 47. And then as it goes off to the north, it brings 60 miles per hour gusts close to the San Juan Islands, especially the southern part of the San Juan Islands. And for Whatcom County, it might be a bit more of a normal bluster with gusts getting into the upper 40s and 50s. But then there are some other model runs that are a little bit more interesting. So this is looking at the NAM 3KM. And before I talk about this a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and check the comments here before I get much further. By the way, if you're watching this chat and you're enjoying this, something that would really help me out and help the channel out is if you go ahead and like the stream if you are actually enjoying the stream. And also, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. And if you don't really know what we're talking about is the atmospheric river that's coming overnight into tomorrow. And then we have a windstorm that's going to be approaching the region on Saturday that could bring some strong winds to some areas. So looking at the comments here, I didn't really see many wow. Oh, Sasquatch doesn't want snow. That's okay. So we got 1 vote for no snow and lots of votes for snow. Go ahead and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and also maybe the kind of weather that you're least looking forward to and the kind of weather you're most looking forward to. And also feel free to post any questions in the chat. Crystal H asks if it will flood like it did a couple years ago where 530 flooded. Not with tomorrow's storm. The atmospheric river is not going to be hanging out over the area long enough to have that kind of impact. If we look at this loop on the HRRR model here, the main fire hose of this atmospheric river is very progressive. It hardly stalls over any of the region. In order to get real flooding rains, like to get the kind of rainfall that makes the rivers really flood to a major level, we would need this atmospheric river to pause over one area of the mountains for several hours, like 10 hours plus. And to get some of the bigger events that we've had around here, like the floods of November 1990, you would need to have this atmospheric river stall over one given area for like 24 hours. So this is not that kind of event, thankfully, but we are going to have to watch for the possibility of more atmospheric rivers as we head off into next week. This one right there on Tuesday into Wednesday could be something to watch, but that could also be more of a wind event. Okay, gonna get back to where I was talking about the NAM 3KM. All right. And before I do, I'm gonna look at the chat one more time. Sasquatch, is there supposed to be thunder on the Washington coast on Saturday? That's what the Weather Channel is telling me, Long Beach Peninsula specifically. Yes, there is a chance for some thunderstorms out there on Saturday. I can show you that real fast before I get talking about the NAM 3KM a little bit more. So let's look at go to the most recent run, and we'll pop over to Surface Base Cape. Actually, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit further here so we can see out over the ocean just a bit more. And I'm going to turn on 0 to 3 kilometer at ground level Cape, which is a better method of instability for this area. So there's actually going to be a little bit of instability around tomorrow as well. Out there near the Long Beach Peninsula, there could be an isolated thunderclap tomorrow evening, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that. And then as the surface low approaches the region on Saturday, there may be a chance for some thunderstorms early in the morning, possibly, if that instability is able to be taken advantage of. And looking at the simulated radar here, it does look like there's the possibility of like some robust early morning showers that could be a thunderstorm. And there could even be the possibility of some water spout potential out there. If we turn on the my gosh, slow down, Ben. Don't get so excited. The significant tornado parameter. There is a little bit of significant tornado parameter on Saturday morning, and if we were to pop off a sounding here, yeah, look at that. We got a little bit of turning with height, plenty of low-level instability. Cape that goes up to about 8 kilometers, and possible hazard type marginal severe. So, yeah, Saturday morning, who knows? Maybe we'll get an early morning waterspout out there on the Washington coast. It's always a needle in the haystack. And another thing we can see here is if there's any helicity streaks. Since I have this up, plenty. All right, let's go through here. So there's going to be so that's just with the cold front tomorrow. That's not anything to be concerned about. But then these new ones here, those are areas that are kind of like rotating and whatnot on Saturday. So yeah, and then after Saturday morning, there's going to be more instability that comes up onto the Washington coast later that afternoon as well. This is down by Astoria. Again, marginal severe. All right, hope that answered your question sufficiently. Going to look at the questions one more time. Thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight, guys. Trying to get this YouTube channel up and going just a bit more. Watching from Bothell. Hey, Western Washington weather. Rabanko, I'm gonna get back to your question after I talk about the windstorm on Saturday. But Rabanko, just so you know, what they asked is thoughts about possible heavy snowfall later this winter. It's looking and feeling much colder and wetter than normal. It would be nice to get a good snowstorm early December or so. So I'm going to get back to your question, and you may need to ask it again to remind me. But I am going to go ahead and talk about this NAM 3KM run here, which is pretty interesting, especially for Oregon State. Okay, so this is looking at the NAM 3KM. So again, for reference, this is what the Euro does. It comes in, it's kind of elongated, and it kind of brings a pseudo sting jet into Oregon. The NAM 3KM, it's not quite as elongated. It still is a little bit though, but it brings a more powerful sting jet into the Oregon coast. And the winds in this thing are sustained near the coast of Northwest Oregon up towards 48 knots, which 48 knots, 2 miles per hour, is about 55 miles per hour sustained. And so that would be a reasonable blow to the Oregon coast. And then eventually it does get really close with this model to Long Beach. But we're just going to really have to be watching exactly where this surface low goes. And there are other models that show this position being different. And this is looking at the HER, for example. It, with this model run, is a bit more similar to the NAM 3KM. And eventually it does bring some pretty strong winds straight out of the west onto the Washington coast. And then it probably, if this model run went out further, would bring a bit of a pressure gradient up the I-5 corridor as well in Washington State. But popping back to the NAM 3KM here, check some of these wind gusts out as this thing comes near the coast. So by 1 p.m. on the Oregon coast, it's bringing 65 mile per hour gusts down there to south central Oregon coast. But then over the water, this is 77 to 80 mile per hour gusts. And it's also bringing 55 to 60 mile per hour gusts to the I-5 corridor of Oregon. And then eventually some 65 to 70 mile per hour gusts do make it towards the Oregon coast. So with high resolution model data coming out like this, I wouldn't be surprised if the National Weather Service in Portland puts out a high wind watch for at least the Oregon coast and maybe even areas like Portland. I might as well just double check to see if they have or have not. No, not yet. But that's something worth watching for sure. And then looking at the HRRR model, it does something similar. It also has the strongest part of the sting jet come onto the northwest Oregon coast, with winds being, again, sustained close to 55 miles per hour. Not quite as strong of winds in the I-5 corridor of Oregon. Excuse me. And then it eventually does bring a deteriorating part of the southern part of the surface low onto the Washington coast. And looking at wind gusts for the HRRR, sorry about that. I keep on doing that on accident. When that sting jet is ripping at peak strength just off the coast, again, 75, close to 80 mile per hour gusts over the water. There is 180 right there. Not 180. There is an 80 mile per hour reading right there. And then it does eventually end up bringing 65 to 70 mile per hour gusts on shore with this bent back occlusion. And the thing is, this is not wind that's coming straight out of the south. This is wind with this bent back occlusion that's coming straight out of the west. This is like how the coast gets some of their really damaging winds. It's coming straight off the ocean and right on shore. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on that. The high resolution model data is coming in pretty hot. And eventually it does end up bringing Sasquatch. If you're still watching, the HRRR model does bring 60 to almost 65 mile per hour gusts to the Long Beach Peninsula. And it doesn't go out any further than this, but I think it would end up bringing upper 40 mile per hour wind gusts up the I-5 corridor as well. All right, I am going to pause right here. I'm going to put this on a high-speed loop, and then I'm going to check the comments while this is looping. Hi, Brian. All right, folks, if you're just hopping in and you don't really know what I'm talking about the storms that are coming up the next couple days, one of them being tonight. If we look at the radar imagery, we can see the atmospheric river getting closer to the Washington coast right now. Gonna take a quick drink. By the way, want to do a couple call outs here. Just want to thank Alliance Motorsports. They gave me a good deal on my tires, and also, just treated me very well. And then also, Tie on Main Street. They sponsored some of my tires. If you've never been to Tie on Main Street, it's a good Thai restaurant in Monroe. They got good Thai food, and also they sell Lao food, and it's very good. It's very tasty. And then also, shout out to, I need to remember the name of this place before I shout it out, so I'm trying to look it up. All right. Bean City Detailing. They reached out to me and offered to treat my windshield with basically Rain-X on steroids. So shout out to them. And they did that for me for free, which was really cool. But they did great work, and they showed me a couple tips and tricks for taking care of my car. Okay. Before I get into more of this update, if you're enjoying this stream, please make sure and hit that like button. That helps out the stream, makes YouTube happy, which I know that sounds stupid, but the more likes and subscribes and all that stuff just makes YouTube be like, oh, people are actually enjoying this. Cool. And they send it out to more people, which just helps out the channel. So, and I'm just trying to get this channel up and going more. Now that storm chasing season is here, get out there and just basically letting people know this channel is alive and well. All right, going to take a look at your comments one more time here. Green-Eyed Breeze says, should we be watching for wind advisories or warnings with wind for Puget Sound? I am going to lean towards wind advisories at this point for the Puget Sound area in Seattle. It's going to be right on the cusp for wind advisories. There's a chance that the coast may see a high wind watch sometime in the next 24 hours be issued. I would not be surprised at all if they issued a high wind watch out there for the coast, just with how some of these model runs are coming in. What about Port Angeles in Lake Sutherland area for wind, says Nitro Man. I'm going to have to remind myself where Lake Sutherland is. Lake Sutherland. All right, I see. It's really close to Lake Crescent. Okay. So at this point, I think the chance for stronger wind up there is probably a little bit less with Saturday's storm. You might actually get windier tonight. Really close to the Dungeness Spit at some point tonight. It's going to get wind gusts. I'm going to refresh this actually. Close to 48, 50 miles per hour out there in the Dungeness Spit, but there may be a little bit of a wind shadow actually over there by Port Angeles proper. And then you're going to get a surge of wind out of the west tomorrow morning. It's not going to be terribly strong, but it will be noticeable out there by Port Angeles. Could get a gust up to 35, maybe 40 miles per hour. But then according to the HRRR model for Saturday's storm, you may actually get some decently strong wind out of the east as this thing is approaching and developing. So that's something to watch for as this is coming up. And looking at the NAM 3cam, yep, shows the same thing. Some easterly wind developing on the morning of Saturday and continuing for a good chunk of the day Saturday. Yeah, easterly wind coming out of the east over there by Port Angeles and Sequim. But it's not looking damaging or destructive by any means, but it will be noticeable. Looking at the European, it's going to pop on Gus. The European looks a little bit more windy up there. And that's because, that's right, the European model goes further north. And for storm track, I would kind of lean towards trusting the European for storm track. So comparing it to the NAM NAM's down there and tracks it right across the Olympic Mountain Peninsula. That's the 18Z run, my bad. But yeah, so the NAM just goes right over the Olympic Mountain Peninsula. And eventually on the backside, I guess, finishing answering this question about Port Angeles, there is a little bit of a west surge even with that NAM 3cam run. So yeah, it'll get breezy on Saturday and the Sunday morning, but just how breezy is in question. All right, going to go back to this view here, and I'm going to pop it onto the loop. All right, let me know, guys, in the comments if there's anything that I haven't covered that you were hoping to see. hoping I would talk about. Hey, Jonathan. Just come in. West Coast weather. It's coming over for tomorrow's storm chase. All right, going through your comments here. Yeah, no problem, Sasquatch. Rebo, will much of that wind push through Yakima River Valley? If so, when? Heading to Yakima for this weekend. Trying to figure out when I should be heading back to avoid hazardous pass conditions. Good question, Rebo, and thanks for reminding me that there's snow on the way. And let me know in the comments if you're still watching. And thanks, Mike, for the correction. Allied Motorsport. Thanks to Allied Motorsport. All right. So, Rebo, let's take a look at that wind push for Yakima and then also for snow conditions over the pass. Turn on the local view here for Washington State. So it's going to get a bit windy tomorrow around Yakima, but really not that bad. 38, 40 miles per hour. And then heading into Saturday, if the NAM 3 cam is correct, it does bring pretty close to Yakima some 40 to 50 mile per hour gusts. Looking at the European model for Yakima, it calls more for 30 to 35 miles per hour. But yeah, it's all going to depend on the track of the storm, which there's still some disagreement. And in regards to snow, you said, looking at that comment again, you're going to be trying to figure out when you should head back. Okay. You should probably head back before Saturday morning if you don't want to deal with any snow. Or early on Saturday morning. Early on Saturday morning would be a good window to head back over the pass. And unfortunately, there's that stupid accident that happened on I-90. The trucker destroyed one of the I-90 bridges. I don't know if you guys saw that news story, but pretty ridiculous. Yeah, just head back before Saturday morning. All right. Gonna turn on the loop of this real fast on actually the her. And look at the comments again. By the way, if you guys are wondering what the thing is, I just shared in the comments. That is my Ko-Fi. It's probably one of the best areas to support Washington Weather Chasers. They let creators like myself keep 100% of the proceeds, and it's treated like a gift or a tip. So it's pretty nice. And there's also the opportunity to do monthly tips of any amount. So that's pretty cool. All right, looking at the comments again. The cat's trying to get into my room here. Okay. Comments. That's what I was doing. Okay. Crystal asks, how much is this going to build the snowpack? Not too much. Because, I mean, there's the possibility of more atmospheric rivers as we head into the week, which could melt any snow that we do get. Jamie Hudson just tuned in. What did I miss? Well, for anyone else that may have just tuned in, hi guys, Benjamin Yurkovich with Washington Weather Chasers here. Basically, what we're talking about tonight is the upcoming weather systems. We have an atmospheric river, which is just off the coast, popping over to the radar here. We can see that we have this atmospheric river showing up on the radar, and this is going to make its way onto the coast tonight and into tomorrow morning and clear out of the area by tomorrow afternoon. And then once we get into Saturday, there's going to be the development of a mid-latitude cyclone. And what's crazy is this mid-latitude cyclone is already developing, even though it's not here. Looking at satellite imagery, we can see this little thing right here, Bear Clinic leaf. This is the beginning stages of our surface low or mid-latitude cyclone or extratropical cyclone that is going to make its way off the coast of Washington State by Saturday and then either cross across Vancouver Island or the Olympic Mountain Peninsula, bringing wind to the region. It's not looking like a major windstorm at this point, but it will bring some strong winds to some locations. The coast has a higher probability, but it should be noticeable for most areas. And the mountains are going to get a little bit of snow as well. Looking at the European model, going into a closer look here. That's the atmospheric river. And then as we head into the day on Saturday, snow levels drop. And Sunday looks pretty snowy up in the mountains, actually. And now looking at snow totals through Monday at 11 a.m. If that's to be believed, it gives a decent amount of snowfall to Snoqualmie Pass, like up over 10 inches possible. Same with Stevens Pass. It's not bad. It's a decent amount of snow right there. Going to refresh this real quick. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying this stream, I've mentioned it a couple times, but if you haven't already, go ahead and like the stream if you've been enjoying this. And also don't forget to subscribe. Okay, AC Cool. Asked for a fantasy forecast for Halloween. First, I'm going to talk just a little bit about late season snow predictions. I've seen multiple questions you guys asking about that. We are going to be having a La Nina winter, which does favor snow, especially for the mountains. But there's also slightly better chances of snow for the lowlands. But looking at the Climate Prediction Center here, we can pop over to the 3-month temperature. This is for November, December, January. Pretty much equal chances. It could go above, it could go below in regard to temperatures through January or through December. But let's see. Yeah, La Nina conditions are present and favored to persist through February 2026. So that's good news for the possibility of lowland snow sometime this winter, usually. And there's so many different factors that go into it. Like, it's difficult to make confident snow predictions. I am guessing that once we actually get into winter, not counting November, but once we get into winter, December, January, it's going to be a good snow year for the mountains. La Nina really starts to kick in here in the Pacific Northwest, usually by later in the winter. So it could be a good late ski season, but it could also kick off a little bit early as well in December. Wave action. Yeah, what am I thinking? Wave action. How have I not talked about wave action? All right, so someone let me see the person's name there. Keith Capellaro asked about wave action on the coast and Bellingham Bay. Yes. So, forecast models. We shall go to the European. And we shall go. I know it's on here somewhere. Let's see. Go to the region. There we go. Okay, so this is looking at significant wave height on the European model. Looking at tomorrow morning right there. So let's bring in waves, significant wave height of about 15 feet, and it could be higher. The significant wave height, if I remember right, that's like the average. No, significant wave height is not the average. It's defined as the average height of the highest 1/3 of all waves. That's right. So significant wave height is the average height of the highest 1/3 of all waves in a given period. So there could be some higher waves as well. And as a matter of fact, if we pop over, there is a high surf advisory out there on the Washington coast, and what they're calling for is large breaking waves of 20 to 22 feet out there on the coast. And then slightly bigger waves down there on the Oregon coast. And then as we head into Saturday, wow, look at that. Huge swell. I mean, we're talking, that looks like significant wave height getting close to 27 feet. Coming right into the central Oregon coast there. And there could be waves even higher. Yeah, so Saturday, big wave day out there. And up in Bellingham Bay, the waves are going to be much smaller, probably like maybe 3 to 5 feet, depending on the wind conditions. All right. Put this back on the loop. Go back to your questions here. Awesome, Crystal. I appreciate the encouragement. And, I'm excited to be going on YouTube more as well. I'm very happy with the Facebook community. And it's better for posting pictures and posting text updates. It's not quite as good for live streams and video anymore, I'm finding. So this is where I'm going to be doing the primary amount of my live streams and videos. One second, just going to see. Okay. Nip Cow up there in Whatcom County. Greetings, everyone. Please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Yes, please. All right, guys, if you have any more questions, go ahead and let me know in the comments. And we can go ahead and we can take a look real fast at current conditions out there. Oh, it's already gusting to 43 out there in Oak Harbor. Look at that. Looks like it's already gusted to 45 as of 6 p.m. out there in Oak Harbor. So yeah, pretty breezy. 18 over there at Everett. 34, Destruction Island. Hello, hello.
Hello.
West Coast weather in the house here. Wearing a Pacific Northwest Weather Watch shirt. Yeah, go ahead and get in frame here. A little bit of advertisement for Michael. See if we can get a screenshot of this for him real fast. All right. Yeah. So yeah, if you guys don't know, this is Jonathan Pulley, West Coast Weather. He also does some pretty great weather updates. Go ahead and just get right here.
Yeah.
And then we can get, okay, there we go. Get a little screenshot here of Michael of your shirt.
I can see. I got in frame.
Everyone's like, what the heck are they doing?
Yeah, we're being weirdos.
Okay,
Weather weirdos.
Boom. All right, got him.
Okay.
All right, just going to do a couple more minutes of updates here, and then got to prep for the storm. Okay. Going to look at your questions just for a minute more here. Let me try to get back to the loop of the NAM 3KM or the HER. Another interesting model is the RDPS. Has a new model run that I actually haven't checked yet. And by the way, I will be doing live streaming out there on the coast tomorrow morning. It looks very similar to the HER and NAM 3KM, except for it brings the low center a bit further north like the European model shows. And it also brings the stronger winds onshore a little earlier, which I would prefer because that would be daytime stuff. Okay. Put this on loop here. A little slower. All right, looking at your comments again. Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. Said I'm an excellent communicator. Crystal H. Yeah, Whidbey Island is going to get hit hard. Are you going to get hit hard? I haven't really looked too close at you guys.
We might. Maybe the very northern end of the island Saturday evening.
Yeah.
With some westerly wind. But it really matters exactly how that low comes in.
All right, guys. Well, hey, if you enjoyed tonight's stream, please make sure and subscribe to the channel and also like the stream and whatnot. And appreciate all of you guys. Be watching for Storm Chase live streams. I think Michael Snyder with Pacific Northwest Weather Watch will also be heading out that way, along with Western Washington weather, possibly.
Yeah.
All the weather people of Washington State, basically, are watching this weather, as weather people do. Okay, and also, also, if you don't already and you're watching on YouTube, I'm also over on Facebook, Washington Weather Chasers, and I post a lot of updates over here. It's pretty fun. So, anyways, folks, thanks so much for hanging out tonight, and I will go ahead and catch you guys on the flippity flip. Adios.